Hi there. You'll be watching this after I have transitioned, and if that's a surprise to you, it was to me too. I'm about 3 weeks away from my transition date. My name is Derek Scott. I've been working with the IFS model for over 2 decades and teaching it. And I've entitled this video, What the IFS Practitioner Needs to Know About Working with Cancer, what all IFS practitioners need to know, because you may not have had to work with somebody with cancer yet, but you never know when that's going to happen. About 13 months ago, I had a sore throat that wouldn't go away. That became throat cancer. That became metastasized to the lungs. And if I was your client, you wouldn't want to abandon me. It'd be the worst thing, actually, for a client in that moment, I think. But you might like to have a sense of skills that you can bring to working with this unusual circumstance, which can strike anyone at any time. So I did want to make this video in the hopes that I could help you as a practitioner, therapist, counselor, whatever your designation is, and your clients. One of the things that I became aware of early on in my cancer journey was a bias that I believe we all carry. So first part of this video is going to be things that you might want to consider for yourself as a practitioner, and the second half, how to work with your clients. I think it's really important to prep yourself so that you can, of course, be of best service to your clients. And the unconscious bias that I became aware of, and I believe it's a cultural bias, is this militaristic language around cancer. It's throughout the medical system. We're battling. We have to stay positive. You may have picked that up. Your parts, chances are, have picked that up. Right? I did not find that helpful. The militaristic metaphor about cancer, not helpful. If it's a battle and I win, yay, I beat cancer. But if I don't, and I haven't, does that make me a loser? I don't think so. So that militaristic language has permeated the culture, and of course, all systems within the culture. So notice that within yourself. Also, this notion of we have to think positive, also very prevalent in the medical system, in my experience, that left no room for the parts of me that needed to be witnessed and expressed, that were not positive in the sense of, I am going to live. They came up repeatedly and needed to be attended to. So just be cautious around the think positive, we're going to beat this kind of mentality. There's also within that, I think, the notion that death is the end. Despite various religious and spiritual understandings, beliefs, there is that sense of death is the end, and therefore to be avoided. These are both legacy and cultural burdens. So what I would suggest you do if you want to clear those legacy and cultural burdens from your system is take some time, either work with another practitioner or work with yourself if you're familiar with your system and your parts know, love, and trust you. Sorry about the speech, it's too much. Take some time, maybe write down all of the things that you associate with the word cancer or death. Or maybe just go inside, it depends how you work, right? Go inside and look for the connections to that. Death, cancer. What do I notice in my body? All sorts of little twitches in my body. Images coming from parts, maybe not. Right? Coffins, a catastrophe, Armageddon, genocide. Lots of big energy around. Where do I notice it? Mainly in my torso. Now, your experience will be different, but wherever you notice that energetic form that's related to cancer and death in the end, attend to it. Once you've got it, once you've got clarity that it's there, it's sitting in your system as an energetic presence, bring light onto it and invite that energy to be released from your system. It's not yours, it's been absorbed, it's been taken on, and it can leave via the light. Clearing of these particular burdens is relatively straightforward once you've identified them. Now, as you may well know, there are other ways of releasing legacy burdens in particular. Legacy burdens in IFS, we can pass back down the lineage to the healing source, and then have them come back and heal each member of the lineage back to us and then to our children, if we pass them on to our children. You can do that. It's a more complex way of doing it. It's an act of generosity or charity to your lineage. It doesn't have to be that complicated. If you don't have training in legacy unburdening, then I would suggest you don't do that, that you just clear it from your own system, because the intent here is to be as clear as possible when you're coming into work with your clients. If you are working with someone who's familiar with legacy unburdening, by all means, do the more thorough clearing of that. Okay. Now, because of that, and because you may also have experience in your own life with cancer in some form, most of us have not been untouched by it. You may find that you have blended rescuer parts with your clients. It can feel like there's tons of self-energy there, right? Because they're coming in with lots of caring, but there's an agenda. The agenda is they want to rescue. Or you don't want them to suffer. Of course, we don't want our clients to suffer. If that part of you takes the lead, you may inadvertently, or that part may inadvertently say to the client, I don't want to hear about your suffering. And their suffering needs to be witnessed either by you, or their suffering parts need to be witnessed by their own self-energy, which you can facilitate if you're not coming from a rescuer part. Similarly, you may have a blended caregiver part. And again, very well-intentioned, very well-meaning, lovely parts. We just ask them to soften back to allow you to be present to do the work. You may also be attached to your client, and you may have parts that are looking at, oh my God, what if they die? Well, if you're attached to them and they die, you are going to grieve. You check to see how that lands for you. Are you familiar with your own grieving cluster? Is this something that you are able to attend to within your own system? I have a couple of videos on grief on my YouTube channel for free. I've also written the book about chronicling my own process with this, which is to do with parts work and medicine work and support. The appendix also has a piece on grief and on people working with their own diagnosis, as well as an introduction to IFS. So there are IFS grief resources out there. There's also a regular, semi-regular one-day grief workshop that is put on by IFSCA, so you can always sign up for that. It's a good idea. So that is a lot of your work to do. That's your prep work. If somebody lets you know that they have a cancer diagnosis. Now we come to them, your clients. So the first, I would say the first parts that come up around the information or the possibility that there's cancer are denial and disbelief. Very common in loss. I call them the twins, right? Denial and disbelief. What's been lost? The non-cancer identity. If you don't have cancer, you are probably not aware that you have a non-cancer identity. I was not aware of that until I lost it by getting cancer. And understanding that loss of identity is very helpful in helping clients to process. So denial, disbelief, minimizing, very, very helpful parts. I would not want to push past them. They're there for a damn good reason. I would invite your client to just thank them. Or with direct access, you could do the same. Hey, looks like there's a part of you saying this can't possibly be true. Great. Let's thank that one. Let's thank that one. When the denial and disbelief protectors, like any protectors, are appreciated and respected for the work they're doing, and they know that self-energy is there, they will be more likely to pull back a little bit to make an aperture so that the parts holding the big affect can be attended to. Big sadness, big protest, hate this, it's not fair. Parts. Sometimes in an attempt to figure out what this new identity is, what does this mean? I have cancer. I don't know what that means. People will tell people in their networks because they want to get a read on it. Hey, I have cancer. And if your response to me might help me figure out what that means. That's entirely understandable that a part would do that. And there are now complexities in the friendship network, in the family network, in the professional network, whatever it is, as the journey through cancer continues. And people who care may want to be included, may want to email any updates, what's going on, blah, 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 I love you. There are periods in the cancer journey where I had no energy and no interest in responding to people's well-meaning messages to me. And it became burdensome because I either then didn't respond, and would they think I was being rude, I would never want, or would I respond and have all that energy go into doing that could have gone elsewhere and probably needed to go elsewhere. So when your client may be talking about who do I tell, I would say, maybe who do you feel can hold the information? And how come you want to tell them? And why don't we sit with this for a bit to get used to it? But if there are some people you absolutely need to tell because you want the support, yeah, go ahead. But alert them to the possibility that this is going to be a long journey. And the more people they tell now, the more people they're going to have to carry along that journey with them, when at times they may not want to. They may, depends on their system. And so loss of the non-cancer status, that loss of identity, very hard. And then the journey. Long periods of time between when new information becomes available. So lots of what feels like limbo, waiting. In my case, I had to wait for scans. And then I went through the horrendous ordeal of radiation and chemotherapy. And had to wait 3 months after that for a scan that would determine whether or not the cancer was still present. So that limbo of waiting can feel maddening. What do I do? Carry on as normal, except for it's not normal. I have cancer. I don't know how to have cancer. I don't really know what that means. So if I'm sending an email, am I just sending an email, or am I somebody with cancer sending an email? It's a challenge to adjust to this new identity and to accommodate what it means. Sometimes, in my experience, big feeling parts will just hijack my system. I'll be in the shower. I'll realize that, in my case, because it's terminal, that I have to say goodbye to my daughter. I'll be racked with the distress of a part, fully blended. Often just a young part. Oh, what is, I don't want this, I don't want this. You can normalize that for your clients. They'll blend, they have high energy. If your client knows how to be with their parts, invite them to be with the blending. Don't get fancy with it, right? And then as that part ebbs out of the body, or less of a hold on the body, we can let it know that we get it then. But that can and does happen, and you can just normalize it for your client. Very helpful. Anything you can normalize in this process, because it's bizarre, will be helpful. I mentioned radiation and chemo. When radiation chemo is going on, basically the managers take the lead. Bless their hearts. Our manager parts are amazing. The daily regimen was increasingly hard to endure. In my particular case, I was driving down to where I had the radiation over 7 weeks, 5 days a week, and then driving back each day. It was a 4-hour drive. Having the radiation, having the chemo once a week, this is my particular circumstances. And my life became focused on increasingly the burnt neck on the inside, extraordinarily painful, felt like really bad strep throat all the time. I also had to get food inside, and I couldn't eat. The tumor had wrapped itself around my jaw. So I was drinking Ensure, a protein and calorie supplement. And I had a throat numbing drink, so that would numb the throat for 15 minutes. And I'll try and get these drinks into my body within 15 minutes twice a day. And then taking anti-nausea medications, and then increasingly needing to take opioids, and then the opioids for the pain needing to be balanced with, because of positive, I'll talk about it, needing to be balanced with constipation. It became a full-time regimen. And who's good at full-time regimens? Managers. Managers. So if you've got a client who's going through that, and it sounds to you like there's not a lot of self-energy around, there's a lot of managers there, praise them, thank them. You could ask your client to thank those managers, but it'll probably be another manager. In my system, my managers are like, you're not here, you're gone. We're going to take over. And they did an extraordinary job. And in my experience, managers do that at times of crisis, right? Moving through significant loss or something like this kind of diagnosis. When that had all run its course, I was then able to come to the exiles, the ones that weren't just ensuring that we got in the car, ensuring that we took our medication, ensuring that we walked the dogs if we could, if we had the energy, ensuring all of this. Those are the managers, right? The ones that suffered were the exiles. So when all that was done, I was able to come to the managers and say, thank you. Thank you for the last few weeks. Can you let me come to the other ones? And then the ones who found that extraordinarily hard to endure, I was able to attend to. And other exiles come up in this process, ones that are terrified of dying, that believe death might be the end, ones that are terrified of pain. I'm lucky enough to live in Canada, where we have medical assistance in dying. And wherever you live, if you don't have that in your country, I would recommend you advocate for it hard. Because here's the options if I didn't have it. I've got tumors on the lungs, they're not doing much for the long term, but the tumor in the throat is pressing against the artery. If that continues unabated, it will either create a stroke, because it will press against the artery, or it will burst the artery and I'll bleed out and die instantaneously. Those are the only options in terms of disease progression, or both. I can get ahead of that, which I'm doing, and choosing my time of transition. My own belief system is that I'm transitioning into becoming an ancestor because ancestors were alive once. So I get to be an ancestor. And I believe I continue to be able to serve as the ancestor, which is important to me. You may or may not know, but Dick Schwartz's teachings are that from many, many guides that he has interviewed over the years, keeps getting the same answer. When we leave, when we transition out of this body, when our self or our soul transitions out of the body, we leave the burdens behind. And then we may become available to come back as a guide, as an ancestor, but as pure self. The burdens of this lifetime are left with this lifetime. Now, of course, you don't want to contradict your client's belief system. If you have a client that says, I'm atheist or agnostic, death is the end of everything, that's just it, that's what I'm looking at. Okay. And I would ask them, the parts of you that hold those beliefs, when did they pick them up? How old are those parts? Sometimes in the case of religious trauma, capital T or small t, people that have been hurt by the church or by religions, throw out everything connected to religion, which they believe may include throwing out their spirituality. And sometimes that, I don't believe in anything, is a rebel part or just a part pushing against teachings. For example, myself as a gay man, according to the Catholicism, I'm an abomination. That's what I learned growing up. The Church of England, where I grew up, I was unnatural and abnormal and could be prayed for. Thanks. Thankfully, I was able to find my way to my spirituality outside of the religious context that condemned me. I know I'm a child of God. I know I'm beloved. I know I've been created in the image of my Creator. I also know that God is love. I also know that every time we manifest love, we're connecting to the divine. I know these things. They bring me great clarity at this point in my life. But you don't want to contradict your client's belief system ever, because you get into a principle. But you can ask them, or you could float the idea that Dick says, well, Dick Schwartz's understanding is this. See how that lands and where that lands for them. In my book, I talk about aspects of my journey which were extraordinarily helpful, which was to do some medicine work by myself. I'm very familiar with my system and with medicines. If you have clients that are open to that, you might want to suggest that, or let them know that if you know a practitioner, or what's helpful with the medicine work is it's like a reset. All of that difficulties going on with all those parts, holding all that distress and trying to manage it all, and I can step back into my gratitude, which is very real, for this life, for my dogs, for my child, for my parts. Whatever your clients want to express gratitude for, they may be able to access more readily with medicine work. We also make meaning, right? So if your client has cancer and it is cleared out of the system, how are they going to make meaning from that experience, from that journey, from that life lesson? That's always a good thing to invite them to consider. We are meaning-making creatures. And if it's not, if, as in my case, the cancer stays, what's the meaning that we make from that? And what does it mean in terms of our sense of purpose in this life? Our sense of legacy? Am I transitioning? I don't particularly like the term dying. A, it feels inaccurate, and B, it has a lot of that cultural baggage attached to it. But I do like the term transitioning because that's my understanding of where I'm headed. If the client does continue to have cancer in their system, have conversations about a celebration of life before they pass. I had one on Zoom with my intimates. It was astonishingly moving. And I recorded it for my daughters. If they have the opportunity for the medically assisted dying, what ritual they will plan for their leaving? I have a time and date. Sounds a little bizarre, but I do. And who do they want at that celebration of life? And you can help them sort that out, right? In my circumstances, not just the celebration of life, but who do I want at my transition? Who do I want there in my last moments in life? And I had parts that were telling me certain people should be there because they want to be there, or they might be offended if they weren't there. So I had to listen to those parts and then make decisions not based on who might be offended or who should be there. Who do I want? And again, you can help clients with those conversations. It's not a wedding. You don't have to worry about where you're seating people. Lots and lots and lots of practical things to attend to as I approach the transition, which I'd never even considered, like passing my car ownership onto my daughter as a gift. So she has that, making sure that the house easily transitions to her, all sorts of things, right? Did I cancel Netflix? I don't know. But there's a lot to consider. And it can feel a bit overwhelming at times. And lastly, what legacy might your client want to leave? I've written this book, I'm making this video, what I do. I've made 10 separate small videos for my daughter for the next 10 birthdays, taking her up to 30. She is most saddened that I won't see my grandchildren, they won't know me. So there were songs that I used to sing her when she was little that I put on a data disc, me singing those songs to her kids who are not yet born, so that she will have that legacy and she'll be able to say that was your granddad. I hope this has been helpful, or at least given you some ideas to play with, to do your own work around whatever you're carrying around terminal illness and cancer. And then to be able to facilitate your clients' work on whatever they're carrying once you're clear and once you're able to hold your self-energy with them. I'll share my understanding with you just to close, and it's very much mine. If you do purchase the book, I believe there's my session with Dick Schwartz a couple of months before my death is part of that, and you'll see this fleshed out more in that video. But here's what my guides have told me repeatedly. I'm being called home. Home is a place I'm looking forward to going. My understanding is eternal, infinite bliss. Sounds good. And because my body's strong and because I'm being called home at this particular time, the cancer has come as the vehicle to enable my soul to return home. Why that's happening at 61, I don't know. I don't need to. That's part of the mystery. I have a lot of respect for the mystery. And I'm able to do the work with my parts around saying goodbye. That's the hardest thing, are the goodbyes. And I'm ready. I'm ready. It's been a good life. I wish you well in yours. When yours comes to a close, I really hope for you that you can reflect and say, it was a good life. Blessings to you all.